Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Monday. I wasn't planning on doing an episode today. I recorded an episode of Nancy Grace this morning. It's going to air on Friday, y'all. I was so nervous. She is like the OG of true crime. I followed her years ago, back when Scott Peterson came in the news with Lacey Peterson being missing and all the drama we're going through. We're going to continue that later this week. Hoping to do a deep dive on the Sebastian Rogers case. That case broke when I was taking a little bit of a break for a week, and I would love to get caught up on that. Still searching for that young man. If you're on YouTube, you know the drill. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and you can ring my bell if you want notifications of when I post new content. Just today, I uploaded 3 different shorts with breaking news. So if you have notifications enabled, you find out those are up there waiting for you. If you don't want to get notifications, just check those shorts. I'm really trying to utilize those a lot more. Music fact of the day, the very talented Amy Winehouse. The song Back to Black is about returning to an old flame and old habits. Amy Winehouse sings through the pain of her ex going back to his previous girlfriend while she descends into addiction. That may be my favorite song of hers. Such a talent. I wish we could have seen what she would have put out over the years. A lot of people have asked me how the best way to donate. I always have the links in the description. With this, it's a way to donate every month for those who want to. And also, if you don't want to or you can't, just watch, subscribe, like, and share with your friends. That's another great way. But I think I'm going to do $5 for a membership each month. And basically, you get your name highlighted in the comments. Those get pushed to the top for me to see them easier. I'm going to have some fun with some little emojis and things like that. But not sure, may try to mail out some pins to members or keychains or something like that. I'm working on it, so keep an eye out if you want. If you don't, that's cool. Couple of little updates before we dive into these new documents with Kouri Richins. Donna Adelson filed a motion asking that her trial be moved from the start date of September 30th to September 16th due to the holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. If the court cannot accommodate that schedule, she is okay with the original trial date going forward. In other news, Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill announced today she is resigning effective immediately. She said this is not due to the ongoing investigation, but she wants to spend more time with her grandchildren and also open that seat up before the filing date closes on April 1st so somebody else can run. A couple of the original charges for Kouri Richins have been amended. The possession with intent to distribute charges have been amended to distribution. It looks like one of the drug charges is gone. So what are her new charges? Attempted murder for the Valentine's Day alleged attempt on Eric's life the first go-round. Also, there are 2 mortgage fraud charges, 2 insurance fraud charges, and 3 forgery charges. If you're on YouTube, I'm going to put this document up. You can read along if you like. We're going to go through the original charges as well. So criminal homicide, aggravated murder, in parentheses, it has domestic violence. That between, on, or about March 3rd, 2022 and March 4th, 2022 in Summit County, state of Utah. The defendant A did intentionally or knowingly cause the death of another individual under any of the following circumstances. The actor committed homicide for pecuniary gain, and or the actor committed homicide by means of the administration of a poison or of any lethal substance or of any substance administered in a lethal amount, dosage, or quantity. Furthermore, the defendant was a cohabitant with the victim. This is the new charge, attempted criminal homicide. They have aggravated murder, domestic violence, that on or about February 14th, 2022 in Summit County, state of Utah, the defendant did intentionally or knowingly attempt to cause the death of another individual under any of the following circumstances. The actor attempted to commit homicide for pecuniary gain, and or the actor attempted to commit homicide by means of the administration of a poison or of any lethal substance or of any substance administered in a lethal amount, dosage, or quantity. Furthermore, the defendant was a cohabitant with the victim. Distribution of a controlled substance, that on or about March 3rd, 2022 and on or about March 4th, 2022 in Summit County, state of Utah, The defendant did knowingly and intentionally distribute a controlled or counterfeit substance that was classified in Schedule 1 or 2. A Schedule 1 drug includes drugs such as heroin, LSD, marijuana. Schedule 2, raw opium, codeine, oxycodone, morphine, cocaine, fentanyl, and a few others, including meth. There is a distribution of a controlled substance that on or about February 14th, that was that attempt. In Summit County, state of Utah, the defendant did knowingly and intentionally distribute a controlled or counterfeit substance that was classified in Schedule 1 or 2. Mortgage fraud. This is a new one, a second-degree felony that on or about June 29th, 2021 in Summit County, state of Utah, the defendant did with the intent to defraud, knowingly make any material misstatement, misrepresentation, or omission during the mortgage lending process, intending that it be relied upon by a mortgage lender, borrower, or any other party to the mortgage lending process. Furthermore, the value of the property, money, or things obtained or sought to be obtained is, are, or exceed $5,000. Insurance fraud. This is a second-degree felony that on or about January 29th, 2022 in Summit County, state of Utah, the defendant did with the intent to deceive or defraud, present or cause to be presented any oral or written statement or representation as part of or in support of a claim for payment or other benefit pursuant to an insurance policy, certificate, or contract, knowing that the statement or representation contained false, incomplete, or fraudulent information concerning any fact or thing material to the claim. Furthermore, the value of the property, money, or things obtained or sought to be obtained is, are, or exceed $5,000. The same thing. This is between January 29th and on or about August 31st for insurance fraud. So you see there, we got some different dates. The August 31st date there is added. Forgery, a third-degree felony as follows. That on or about June 29th, 2021 in Summit County, state of Utah, the defendant did with the purpose to defraud someone, make, complete, execute, authenticate, or utter a writing so that the writing or the making, completion, execution, or utterance purports to be the act of another person, whether that person is existent or non-existent. Another forgery, third-degree felony on or about August 2nd, 2021 in Summit County is the same description as what we just went through. Forgery, third-degree felony, this is on or about January 29th of 2022. The second amended information is supported by the following probable cause statement, which is based on evidence obtained from Detective Jeff O'Driscoll. Eric Richins died from illicit fentanyl poisoning. At 3:21 a.m. on March 4th, 2022, the defendant called Summit County Dispatch and reported that her husband, Eric Richins, was not breathing. He's cold. He doesn't have a pulse. 10 minutes later, Summit County Emergency Medical Services personnel and sheriff's deputies arrived at Eric Richins' home. They performed life-saving measures, but ultimately declared Eric Richins deceased at 4:58 a.m. EMS personnel thought that he had been dead a while and noted he was asystole the whole time, which essentially means that the heart was not pumping. There was no sign of electrical activity in the heart. He was deceased. A pathologist at the Office of the Medical Examiner performed an autopsy on Eric Richins and concluded that his immediate cause of death was drug intoxication, fentanyl. The OME determined that the level of fentanyl in Eric Richins' blood was approximately 5 times a lethal dose, and that his gastric fluid contained an additional 2,000 mg/ml of fentanyl. The OME determined that the byproducts of the fentanyl found in Eric Richins' gastric fluid were typical of illicit fentanyl, not medical-grade fentanyl. The OME determined the fentanyl found in Eric Richins' body had been orally ingested. They also found quetiapine in Eric Richins' gastric fluid. Quetiapine is an atypical antipsychotic medication used for the treatment of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and major depressive disorder. It is widely used as a sleep aid due to its sedating effects. The defendant told law enforcement at the time of Eric Richins' death she had the prescription for quetiapine. The next section, the night of Eric Richins' death. At 7:22 p.m. on March 3rd, 2022, the night of Eric Richins' death, the defendant's paramour text messaged the defendant a photograph of two people kissing that was captioned, "Love you." At 8:36 p.m., the defendant responded, "I love you," with a kiss emoji. While EMS personnel were attending to Eric Richins, the defendant told law enforcement that she and Eric Richins had drank together at 9 o'clock to celebrate something at work tomorrow. A year later, the defendant told law enforcement, "I made a Moscow mule in the kitchen and I brought them into our bedroom." The defendant further stated that they drank the Moscow mules sitting in the bed. Sometime after Eric Richins' death, the defendant wrote in a journal that the night of Eric Richins' death, she and Eric Richins went to the kitchen and both started grabbing ingredients for the drink and a lemon drop. We finished talking, made our way back to our bedroom, and brushed our teeth. On the night of Eric Richins' death, the defendant told law enforcement, "We eat THC gummies. Sometimes Eric will eat a gummy before he goes to bed." He didn't. It didn't seem like he did, though. A year after Eric Richins' death, the defendant told law enforcement she saw Eric Richins take a THC gummy in the bedroom after drinking the Moscow Mule. The defendant then clarified, "I didn't actually see him take it. He told me he took it. And then he had to have taken it while I was making the drinks." In explaining to law enforcement how the defendant thinks the fentanyl got into Eric Richins' body, the defendant said, "I honest to God think it was in one of those gummies, 100%. After the defendant's arrest for the murder of Eric Richins, the defendant's mother asked the defendant if she was sure the fentanyl came from a THC gummy. The defendant replied, "That's what I'm banking on, yes." The OME did not find any THC in Eric Richins' blood or gastric fluid. The THC gummies in Eric Richins' home at the time of his death were tested and did not contain fentanyl. The defendant told law enforcement that she went to bed with Eric Richins in the bedroom at approximately 9:30 to 9:45 on March 3rd, 2022, and shortly thereafter went to one of their children's bedrooms to sleep with the child because the child was having nightmares. The defendant said she awoke in the child's bedroom at approximately 3 a.m. on March 4th, 2022, and returned directly to the bedroom. The defendant said that she was asleep in the child's bedroom the entire time. The defendant told law enforcement that when she left the bedroom at approximately 9:30 to 9:45 to go to the child's bedroom, she left her cell phone plugged in next to her bed and did not take it into the child's bedroom. The defendant told law enforcement that upon returning to the bedroom, she felt Eric Richins and he was cold to the touch and not breathing, and she immediately called 911. Summit County Dispatch received her 911 call at 3:21 a.m. on March 4th, 2022. Forensic analysis of the defendant's cell phone shows that it was unlocked 6 times between 3:06 a.m. on March 4th, 2022, and 15 minutes later at 3:21 a.m. when the defendant called 911. This analysis also showed that in the 13 minutes between 3:08 a.m. and 3:21 a.m., the defendant's phone or an associated device traveled approximately 378 feet. The defendant told law enforcement she performed CPR on Eric Richins pursuant to the 911 dispatcher's instructions. The 911 recording captures the defendant counting as if she is performing chest compressions. Reminds me of Alex Cox when he shot and killed Charles Vallow. Same thing. The defendant told her best friend, "I pumped so damn hard, so hard," screaming at him to come back to life. The defendant wrote in a journal that she began CPR compressions until the EMT arrived. They immediately took over. According to EMS personnel, dispatch says she was doing CPR, but the first on-scene fire guy said she was not. The next section, Eric Richins nearly died on Valentine's Day 2022. A certain diner in Camas, Utah, the diner, opens daily at 7 a.m. At 8:53 a.m. on February 14th, 2022, the defendant placed a 1-minute phone call to the diner. The defendant and Eric Richins' joint bank account statement shows a $41.29 purchase at the diner on this day. At 9:41 a.m., the defendant text messaged her paramour, "Headed that way." At 9:49 a.m., the defendant text messaged him a screenshot of a navigation application on her cell phone showing her current location on SR 32 in Camas and her projected arrival at an unknown destination at 10:49 a.m. At 11:09 a.m., Eric Richins placed a 2-minute phone call to the defendant. At 11:27 a.m., Eric Richins text messaged a photograph to the defendant. That photograph had been deleted from both the defendant and Eric Richins' phones. At 11:33 a.m., Eric Richins text messaged the defendant, "I'm going to go lay down for a bit. If I don't start getting better, I'm going to head to the hospital." 1 minute later, the defendant responded, "Geez, it's that bad? Need me to come home? Go to take a nap and call me when you're up." 5 minutes later, at 11:39 a.m., activity recorded on Eric Richins' phone and associated devices ceased. Activity did not resume until nearly 2.5 hours later at 1:32 p.m. At 1:43 p.m., Eric Richins texted the defendant and asked, "Are you home?" The defendant responded, "No, in Provo, waiting for my cabinet installer guy. Are you home?" At 1:45 p.m., Eric Richins responded, "In the office. I've been sleeping out here." Eric Richins' office was located in a freestanding structure behind his home. At 1:59 p.m., Eric Richins called witness 1, a close friend, and reported, "You almost lost me." Eric Richins told witness 1 that the defendant had left him a sandwich and a note in the front seat of his truck, that he went into the house with the sandwich, had one bite, and broke out into hives. Eric Richins said he then injected himself with his son's EpiPen that was on the counter, drank a bottle of Benadryl, and went to sleep. Eric told witness number 1 that he almost died. Witness 1 could hear the fear in Eric Richins' voice and could tell that Eric Richins was scared. At 2:11 p.m., Eric Richins calls witness 2, another close friend, and reported, "I think my wife tried to poison me." Eric told the witness about the defendant leaving his favorite sandwich from the diner along with a note. He said he ate some of the sandwich, got sick, and blacked out. Eric Richins told witness 2 he felt like he was going to die. Witness 2 was struck by the tone of Eric Richins' voice and said Eric seemed different, down, and somber. Opioids, including fentanyl, can cause allergic and pseudo-allergic reactions to include hives. Eric Richins did not have any food allergies. On June 18th, 2022, 3.5 months after Eric Richins' death, the defendant text messaged her best friend about this incident. The defendant wrote, "It was Valentine's Day and Eric and I were both working from home that day. I ordered lunch from the diner. He never broke out in hives or used an EpiPen. I was effing with him. He said the sandwich hurt his stomach, so he was going to take a nap. No hives, no EpiPen." On August 22nd, 2023, nearly 4 months after the defendant was arrested for the murder of Eric Richins, the defendant discussed this incident in 2 phone calls. In a phone call with her mother, the defendant confirmed she was the person who picked up sandwiches from the diner on Valentine's Day. She said, "We ate in the office." In a phone call with her brother, the defendant discussed buying lunch at the diner that day. The next section, the defendant purchased illicit fentanyl shortly before Eric Richins' near death on Valentine's Day 2022 and death on March 3rd through the 4th, 2022. The defendant occasionally employed witness 3 to assist her with renovating houses. On January 20th, 2022, the defendant texted witness 3, "I did want to chat with you about something super random. Not now, at kids stuff. I'll call you tomorrow if that works." On January 21st, 2022 at 7:24 p.m., the defendant texted witness 3, "Hey, today snuck away from me. Can I give you a call in the morning around 11:30? On January 22nd of 2022 at 11:06 a.m., the defendant texted witness 3, "Got a sec?" Witness 3 told law enforcement that he spoke with the defendant on January 22nd, 2022, and the defendant asked him for fentanyl. The defendant told witness 3 she wanted the fentanyl for a client who had back pain. Witness 3 told the defendant he would not get her fentanyl, and the defendant hung up on witness 3. On January 22nd, 22 at 5:35 p.m., after the phone call in which witness 3 declined to get fentanyl for the defendant texted witness 3, "Have another one for you. Call me if you get a sec." Witness 3 told law enforcement that during the second phone call with the defendant asked him for propofol. Witness 3 told the defendant he could not get her propofol. Propofol, by the way, that is the drug that killed Michael Jackson. The text message from January 22nd, 22 between the defendant and witness 3 were manually deleted from the defendant's phone. After that date, the defendant and witness 3 did not communicate ever again. The defendant and witness 3 had communicated regularly throughout the prior year. On May 31st, 2022, approximately 3 weeks after the defendant's arrest for the murder of Kouri Richins, the defendant's mother texted the defendant, quote, "Witness 3 running his mouth," end quote. The defendant occasionally employed witness 4 to clean houses. Witness 4 told law enforcement that sometime in early 2022, before Eric's death, the defendant either called or texted asking she procure some fentanyl for the defendant. Forensic analysis of Verizon records for the defendant's phone show 746 SMS messages, 94 MMS messages, and 12 calls between the defendant's phone and witness 4's phone between January 1st of 2022 and March 15th of 2022. These messages were manually deleted from the defendant's phone. The defendant's phone contained messages to and from witness 4 before and after this time frame. Witness 4 told law enforcement that pursuant to the defendant's request for fentanyl, she contacted witness 5 for an introduction to someone that would sell her fentanyl. Witness 5 confirmed that witness 4 asked her for an introduction to someone that would sell witness 4 fentanyl. Witness 5 elaborated that witness 4 messaged her through Facebook asking to speak with her and that she called witness 4 shortly thereafter. A Facebook message from witness 4 to witness 5 on February 5th, 2022 at 1:37 p.m. asked, "Text me, I've got a question, won't do it on this." In response to witness 4's inquiry, witness 5 provided witness 4 with the phone number of a fentanyl dealer. That is witness number 6. Witness 4's phone contains a contact for witness 6's phone number. The contact is labeled in a fashion that connects witness 5 with witness 6. Witness 4 told law enforcement she contacted witness 6 shortly after receiving his contact information from witness 5 and asked to purchase fentanyl. Witness 4's phone records establish she texted witness 6 on February 10th, 2022 at 8:52 p.m. Reminder, 4 days before Eric thought he was poisoned. Witness 4 told law enforcement she met witness 6 at the Maverick gas station in Draper on February 11th, 2022, and purchased from him 15 to 30 round light green blue pills, which she understood to be fentanyl. Witness 4's phone data shows she called witness 6 several times on February 11th, 2022, between 5:19 p.m. and 6:52 p.m. Witness 4 stated that these calls were to coordinate the specific timing of the fentanyl purchase. Witness 4's phone data also shows she texted witness 6 several times beginning at 7:18 p.m. while she was located at the Maverick. Witness 4's phone data shows several text messages between the defendant and witness 4 on February 11th, 2022. The messages began at 3:42 p.m. while witness 4 was at her home in Heber and continued at 6:23 p.m. as she passed through Linden on her way to the Maverick gas station in Draper. The defendant and witness 4 texted at 7:18 p.m. while witness 4 was located at the Maverick and texted with witness 6. The messages continued at 8:20 p.m. as witness 4 passed through Lehigh on her way back to her home in Heber and concluded at 8:56 p.m. while witness 4 was at her home in Heber. I hope I'm getting these names right, y'all. Witness 4 told law enforcement she delivered the pills that she purchased from witness 6 to the defendant in a hand-to-hand transaction in the driveway of witness 4's home in Heber on either February 11th or February 12th. Witness 4's phone data shows that in addition to the text messages the defendant and witness 4 exchanged on February 11th, the defendant and witness 4 exchanged text messages on February 12th at 9:58 a.m. and 2:49 p.m. Witness 4 was located at her home in Heber during both exchanges. The defendant and witness 4 exchanged 30 text messages on Valentine's Day, 2022. Witness 4 told law enforcement that in late February 2022, the defendant told her that the fentanyl pills that she previously provided were not strong enough and asked she procure some stronger fentanyl. Witness 4 initially stated the defendant specifically asked for some of the Michael Jackson stuff during the second request for fentanyl, but subsequently conceded that the defendant may have referred to Michael Jackson during her earlier request for fentanyl. Michael Jackson died of a propofol overdose. On February 26, 2022, Witness 4 sent Witness 5 a Facebook message asking that Witness 5 again provide her with Witness 6's phone number. Later that same day, Witness 4 contacted Witness 6 and arranged to purchase additional fentanyl from him at the same Maverick gas station in Draper. Witness 4's phone data shows that on February 26, beginning at 2:25 p.m., the defendant and Witness 4 exchanged several text messages. They continued to exchange text messages between 5:01 p.m. and 10:22 p.m. as Witness 4 traveled from her home in Heber to Maverick gas station in Draper and back to her home in Heber. Witness 4's phone data also shows she exchanged text messages with the defendant and Witness 6 while she was located at the Maverick. On May 8th, 2023, the defendant was arrested for the murder of Kouri Richins and received a copy of the charging document and probable cause statement. The probable cause statement referred to Witness 4 by her initials and contained many of the facts presented above. On a jail call that day with her mother and brother, the defendant said, "Eric asked me to ask Witness 4 for pain pills." Internet articles and searches on the defendant's phone. The defendant used several cell phones, including burners. The cell phone that the defendant primarily used leading up to and shortly after Eric's death indicates a significant amount of information was manually deleted from it, particularly between January and mid-March of 2022. Forensic analysis of one of the defendant's cell phones shows that by April 16th, 2022, 3 days after law enforcement first informed the defendant that Eric died of a fentanyl overdose, the defendant's cell phone was used to access website articles with the following titles, among others: Utah State Prison, I may butcher this, y'all, Timpanogos Women's Facility, what happens to deleted messages, cause of death usually does not impact life insurance payment, how do police and forensic analysts recover deleted data from phones, and signs of being under a federal investigation. Forensic analysis of that same cell phone also shows that by June 6, 2022, the defendant's phone was used to conduct the following internet searches, among others. Can you delete, I don't know what this word is, y'all, EVERTGINV off an old iPhone without actually having it? There's so many typos there. I don't know what that girl was doing. Women, Utah prison. Can cops uncover deleted messages iPhone? Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? How long does life insurance companies take to pay? What is a lethal dose of fentanyl? The defendant was in financial distress at the time of Kouri Richins' death. On April 26, 2019, the defendant formed Kouri Richins Realty LLC for the purpose of selling and buying real estate. The defendant was the sole member of the company. The defendant used hard money loans to finance Kouri Richins Realty house flipping projects. At the time of Kouri Richins' death, Kouri Richins Realty owed hard money lenders at least $1.8 million. In the 5 months prior to Eric's death, the company realized $170,000 in revenue while its monthly debt service exceeded $250,000. It borrowed from over 25 lenders to support its business and service its debt obligations. Despite the existing debt and insufficient revenue, the defendant continued to use hard money loans to purchase additional properties, including 3 properties in November of 2021. The business banked with America First Credit Union, and at the time of Eric's death, its account balance was negative $5,734. In the 5 months preceding Eric's death, the defendant sought to withdraw over $300,000 from this account for which there were insufficient funds. This resulted in 198 separate overdraft and return transaction fees totaling almost $5,000. On September 30th, 2021, the defendant entered into a revenue purchase agreement with Greengrass Holdings, whereby Greengrass purchased $87,000 in purported accounts receivables across 8 companies registered to the defendant. Greengrass remitted $60,000 to the defendant as agreed. The defendant did not remit the purported receivables to Greengrass as agreed. The company was the only one of the defendant's 8 companies operating at the time. On December 9th, 2021, 3 months before Eric's death, Greengrass sued the defendant for $87,532 owed, plus interest, cost, and disbursements. The defendant had a personal checking account with Navy Federal Credit Union, which included a $15,000 credit line. Between August 28th, 2021 and December 28th, 2021, the account balance ranged between $0 and -$51, and the credit line balance owing ranged between $13,714 and $14,814. Nevertheless, during this time frame, the defendant wrote 8 checks from this account totaling $36,600 payable to herself or her business. Navy Federal returned those checks unpaid. The defendant had an interest in Eric Richins' successful business only if he died while they were married. Eric and his business partner owned a stone masonry business called C&E Stone Masonry LLC. They founded the business on December 1st, 2009, more than 3 years prior to Eric's marriage to the defendant. In 2020, C&E's adjusted taxable income was over $1.4 million. Eric and the defendant entered into a premarital agreement dated June 15th, 2013. In the PMA, the defendant released and relinquished all right, claim, or interest in C&E Stone Masonry LLC. The PMA provides that following Eric Richins' marriage to the defendant, C&E Stone Masonry shall nevertheless remain the sole property of Eric Richins. The PMA further provides the defendant shall have no right or claim to the business, except that if Eric should die prior to the defendant while the two are lawfully married, Eric's partnership interest in the business shall transfer to the defendant. As early as February 2019, the defendant told Witness 7, a friend, that she was trapped in her marriage and that the PMA would leave her without anything financially and that she did not know of a way out of her marriage. On December 17th, 2021, the defendant told Witness 8 she felt stuck and trapped in her marriage and it would be better if Eric just died. The next section, the defendant mistakenly believed she would inherit Eric's estate. On October 13th, 2020, Eric Richins consulted an estate planning lawyer. Eric informed his lawyer he wanted to protect himself in the short term from the recently discovered and ongoing abuse and misuse of his finances by the defendant and to protect his 3 children in the long term by ensuring the defendant would never be in a position to manage his property after his death. On November 3rd, 2020, Eric executed several estate planning instruments, including a healthcare directive, durable power of attorney, pour over will, the Eric Richins Living Trust. In each of these instruments, he appointed his sister, Katie Richins Benson, his agent, or trustee to the intentional and purposeful exclusion of the defendant. He transferred his home and his interest in C&E to the trust. Eric removed the defendant as the beneficiary of a $500,000 New York life insurance company policy on his life and designated the trust as the beneficiary. Smart man. On March 6, 2022, in the immediate aftermath of Eric Richins' death, Eric Richins' sister, Amy, was at Eric Richins' home. The defendant asked Amy to leave the property. Amy responded the home did not belong to the defendant and instead it belonged to the trust. The defendant then struck Amy Richins several times. The defendant, in a text message to her paramour, recounted the event as, "I lost it on Eric's sister finally and punched her a couple of times." There was an angry face emoji. "My brother ripped me off of her before it got too intense. She called the cops. It was at my own house because I told her to leave and she wouldn't. Said this is her brother's and she didn't have to. So I said, get out or I'll get you out." Sheriff's deputies responded to Eric Richins' home and called Eric Richins' estate planning lawyer from the scene. The lawyer explained to the defendant that Eric had indeed placed his home into a trust and that Katie Richins Benson was the trustee. The defendant's behavior during their conversation led the lawyer to believe the defendant was learning of the trust and its provisions for the first time. The defendant later told law enforcement she was just now learning after all of this happened about the trust in general. They go on to say that she was the beneficiary of a significant amount of insurance on Eric Richins' life. At the time of his death, at least 3 insurance policies on Eric's life existed, with death benefits of $1.3 million and Kouri as the beneficiary. A 4th policy existed with a death benefit of $500,000. The defendant mistakenly believed that she was the beneficiary of that policy. A 5th policy existed that paid approximately $168,000 towards the balance of Eric's mortgage. The defendant submitted a falsified bank statement to Iron Bridge Financial in support of a mortgage loan application. July 7th, 2021, the defendant, on behalf of her company, Kouri Richins Realty, entered into a mortgage loan with Iron Bridge Financial. In support of the loan application on June 29th, the defendant submitted a purported America First statement for her business dated May 31st, 2021, showing an account balance of $210,898.61. The actual America First statement for her company dated May 31st, 2021, shows an account balance of $15,609.93. The America First statement for C&E dated on May 31st, 2021, shows an account balance $210,898.61. The transaction descriptions listed on the purported statement that the defendant submitted in support of the mortgage loan application are identical to the transaction descriptions listed on C&E statement. The purported statement that the defendant submitted is compromised to the header of Kouri Richins Realty's actual statement and the body of C&E statement. On July 2nd, 2021, while processing the mortgage loan, an Iron Bridge representative noted to the defendant, "When I ran your credit, it was lower than I expected. Looks like there are some delinquencies with regards to a few credit cards. I was just a bit surprised by that. I know you have a lot of money in the bank to cover expenses." 3 days later, the defendant explains, "I recently learned about all of this as well. LOL. Then my husband tried to explain to me this was his doing a while ago. We are in the process of separation for one of many reasons, but this is one of them to keep it short and sweet. LOL. It's been crazy to say the least." Next section, the defendant submitted a falsified bank statement to Boomerang Finance in support of a mortgage loan application. On August 4th, 2021, the defendant, on behalf of Kouri Richins Realty, entered into a mortgage loan with Boomerang Finance. In support of the loan, on August 2nd of 2021, the defendant submitted the first page of a purported America First statement for Kouri Richins Realty dated June 30th, 2021, showing an account balance of $702,831.96. The actual America First statement for Kouri Richins Realty dated June 30th, 2021, shows an account balance of $15,339.12. The America First statement for C&E dated June 30th shows that $702,831.96 account balance. The transaction descriptions listed on the purported statement that the defendant submitted in support of the mortgage loan applications are identical to the transaction descriptions listed on C&E's statement. The purported statement the defendant submitted is comprised of the header of Kouri Richins Realty's actual statement and the body of C&E's statement. She also submitted a falsified insurance application on Eric's life. That happened on January 29th of 2022. She applied to True Stage for an insurance policy on Eric's life with a death benefit of $100,000, and the defendant was named as the beneficiary. This life insurance policy became effective February 4th of 2022, 10 days before the defendant's attempt on Eric Richins' life and 1 month before Eric Richins' death. The defendant was able to apply for the policy because of her membership in PenFed Credit Union. Eric had no affiliation with PenFed. The policy premiums were deducted from her Business America First account. Eric had no affiliation with that account. The address for Eric provided on the application is a P.O. box solely belonging to the defendant. The phone number for Eric provided on the application contained an incorrect digit. The signature on the application that purported to be from Eric's signature is a forgery. On August 20th, 2023, 3 months after the defendant was arrested for the murder of Eric, the defendant's mother, while discussing the defendant's finances, asked the defendant about this True Stage policy. The defendant replied, "Don't talk about that one." The defendant fraudulently claimed insurance benefits from Eric Richins' death. She was the beneficiary of 2 insurance policies on Eric's life issued by True Stage with the death benefit of $350,000. One of the policies issued on May 12th, 2017, and the other on February 4th, 2022, 1 month prior to Eric's death. On April 28th, 2022, the defendant submitted a claim against the policies. On June 7th, True Stage learned that Eric's cause of death was. So that was it. It's kind of a lot. And we get into all these different witnesses and it gets a little confusing, but essentially, you kind of figure it out. You see that they are really still building this case against Kouri. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see more charges in the future. We know they're investigating her mother into the death of her partner back in 2006. And they've mentioned that there is possibility she could have been associated with Eric's death as well. Huge charges for her. Seems pretty solid in their investigation and what they've got. So I'll keep you guys updated. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you soon.